Hey friends, Rotoworld's Josh Norris and Patrick Daugherty here with a look at Rotoworld's summer rankings. Let's focus on Pat, the wide receiver position. It's an important position for fantasy football, and there's a lot of really good names in the top 10 of Rotoworld's rankings. As we see DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas in that top 3. Pat, those top 8 names have all put up huge numbers in the past, but 2 of them have switched teams this offseason. Does that kind of unknown element of Odell Beckham, of Antonio Brown, give you any pause in selecting them?
Switching teams often does, but in these 2 individual cases, no. The Raiders are going to force the issue with Antonio Brown. Yeah. They want to prove this is a smart trade. And Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield, it's just a match made in heaven. I mean, look at, Odell Beckham could catch like a 5-yard slant from Eli Manning and make it a 90-yard touchdown. Imagine.
He did it multiple times.
Yeah, imagine what he could do actually catching passes in stride down the field from Baker Mayfield, who was an amazing deep passer last year with guys like Brashad Perriman. So imagine what they can do together. So I'm all in on Odell Beckham as usual.
Yeah, and it's a great point because I actually think Odell has improved his situation quite a bit. Markedly. And the one that conversely is in a bad situation now is probably Jarvis Landry because they were using him so much as a vertical receiver. I do have a lot of pause with Antonio Brown. I mean, a lot of pause because it's the Oakland Raiders. It's Derek Carr. It's John Gruden. We don't know anything about if this offense can support a true wide receiver 1 because they certainly did not do it last year with Amari Cooper.
The one thing we do know they can do is have high percentage targets. Last year, Derek Carr was upper 60s in completion percentage. Efficiency is always John Gruden's calling card as offensive coordinator. Now, not like actual yards. That's not really his thing. But Antonio Brown, I think the targets are going to be out of control, almost Pittsburgh level. And his upside is probably lower than it was in Pittsburgh, of course. But I think the floor, which is always one of the highest in fantasy football, is going to remain very, very high. I
do want to say this about Antonio Brown. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger has been playing that well for the last 2 seasons, especially on the road. No. But the biggest difference to me in the 2 styles is that when the structure of the play breaks down, Ben Roethlisberger wants to look vertically, and so much of Antonio Brown's production comes from those vertical shots, those broken plays. Derek Carr, we know that last year's receivers and leaders in receptions for the Raiders were Jalen Richard at running back and Jared Cook at tight end.
Both 68 catches.
Yes, and those are mostly near the line of scrimmage. I just don't know if the broken style and really where he's a major threat to offenses and defenses and Antonio Brown, if that's going to pick up with the Oakland Raiders.
It won't, but I think he'll pick up the slack with those high efficiency, kind of low upside targets, which I think will keep him near the top in fantasy.
Pat, I want to focus in on wide receiver 19 in this next group of wide receiver rankings we have, 11 through 20. There, all the way at 19, is Kenny Golladay of the Detroit Lions. Pat, I can't get on board with this one. I know I'm just one, small voice in the behemoth that is Rotoworld, but why do we have Kenny Golladay as wide receiver 19?
It's a little high, I'll admit that.
It's a lot high.
It's people betting on a special talent. He was the wide receiver 20 in PPR last year, and Danny Amendola is a downgrade on Golden Tate. People kind of think maybe Amendola is going to cut into his targets, cut into his receptions, but Kenny Golladay was actually best last year when Golden Tate was in the Lions offense, and it was a more functional offense. And maybe if they're 3 deep at receiver again, it decreases the pressure on Kenny Golladay. And it is high, but again, sometimes you have to bet on talent, and we know Kenny Golladay is a massive talent. And to me, the wide receiver 19, 23 area, that's an appropriate hedge, even on a player in a bad situation, just on a player that we know is so physically gifted.
It's interesting, though, because I'm acting like this is a high ranking. It's not. He's currently being drafted as wide receiver 18. So a lot of people like Kenny Golladay. And for Pat, every single year, I think we go into seasons just wanting to avoid certain situations. I'm basically doing that with the Lions as a whole. I like Kerryon Johnson, don't like where he's going. I like Kenny Golladay, I don't like where he's going. In fact, last year in the games, 5 or 6 games he played with Marvin Jones, they basically tied an average number of targets per game. I'm really nervous that Marvin Jones is going to be the one who leads this team in targets once the season is over.
Yeah, it was a frustrating, inexplicable situation after Golden Tate left. We thought the targets would rocket up, and they did not. And Matt Patricia is a crazy person. So if you're going to fade an offense, the Lions are certainly a good choice.
It's never, in 2019, to go into the season being like, yes, we just want to run the football and play good defense all the time. And that's what the Lions are. And they're turning Matthew Stafford, who's this big arm quarterback, into someone who just wants to have easy completions all the time.
It's just going to be a brilliant ruse, all a ruse.
We have Chris Godwin of the Bucs as wide receiver 20. Pat, I think he belongs way above Kenny Golladay and even multiple receivers on top of him. But let's look at a lot of these receivers, are supported by passing games that can support 2 wide receivers. Speaking of Chris Godwin at 20, we also have Mike Evans at wide receiver 9. Speaking of Adam Thielen at wide receiver 13, we have Stephon Diggs as wide receiver 15. Is there another receiver that you think could emerge as a top 2 wide receiver tandem, which really means that a passing game really is a breakthrough offense, and that's always something we want to target in preseason drafts?
You just want me to say Curtis Samuel, don't
Maybe.
you?
I might.
I'm not going to say Curtis Samuel. There was no one really that super stuck out to me here. A very untrendy answer would be maybe Mike Williams. If his role last year was kind of his new normal, we have no idea if that'll be his new normal, and not the most explosive. Maybe Will Fuller, if he could ever stay healthy and stay on the field. We know he's got kind of like a preternatural connection with Deshaun Watson, and been an elite touchdown scorer, even though it's really wasn't supposed to be his game. So he's a guy I could see making the leap, but I didn't see any clear cut.
And there are others too. I mean, the Rams have 3 receivers within the top 23. And Brandon Cooks at wide receiver 16, Robert Woods as wide receiver 18, Cooper Kupp as wide receiver 23, and we didn't even mention Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's there at wide receiver 28. Talk about breakthrough seasons. Last year was fantastic. And Pat, I don't know if it's this easy, but in the Bengals offense, he has a real chance to play that Cooper Kupp role, which is in the slot. And that just equals production in that style of an offense.
He does. The only thing I would maybe be fading the Bengals offense. I just do not know what to expect from Zach Taylor. I know what we're supposed to expect, but I was not a big fan of Zach Taylor's approach the offseason and the staff he hired. And Tyler Boyd is probably a pretty clear regression candidate. When you throw that in with a new offense, to me, despite, like you said, if he's going to actually run the Rams offense, then Tyler Boyd could probably match or even surpass last year. I just don't know what to expect from Zach Taylor.
On a positive note, he actually had better numbers when A.J. Green was actually in the ballgame, was on the field. So I do think that if play calling is good, if offensive line is good enough, which is a major question.
Major question.
There's an opportunity for them to support 2 wide receivers as well. Pat, thanks so much. And all of you, thanks so much for watching. And for more rankings, projections, strategy, and advice on how to dominate your draft, be sure to go to rotoworld.com/draft guide for our mobile optimized draft guide.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.